Today I'm going to have a closer look at a tenor like this. As the title suggested, this is an Amati. It's the typical classic deluxe or classic or whatever, but this happens to be a stencil, so there's no Amati engraving on it, but I guarantee 1,000,000% this is an Amati Deluxe. It's exactly the same, it just doesn't have that engraving saying Amati Deluxe on there. However, it does have some bell engraving, and luckily, again, it's covering my stupid head. Now, typical of these Amati saxophones, they have the nickel silver keys with the brass lacquered body. They have this angular body to bell brace right there. And there's your typical pinky cluster of these Amatis with the angular G sharp and the low B flat, which goes right around the B key here, and the C sharp just at the back here. You'll see an E flat keys here right there have this angular look to them, very typical of that style and that era. And there's my friend the octave key. It's quite a big key from here all the way to the top here, longer than your average octave key. Still does its octave things like that. Look at that. The palm keys here are very nice under the fingers. Now the key layout itself feels quite okay. Wait a minute. Yeah, my favorite sound. The key layout doesn't actually feel as old-fashioned as I was kind of alluring to when I was doing my demo of my Amati 61. Now the reason I've got this tenor is because a few weeks ago, or a little while ago I should say, I did a demo of an Amati 61 alto saxophone, and I mentioned that it was quite a substantial upgrade of something like this. Now it got me curious, and I thought to myself, maybe I was a little bit harsh on a saxophone like this. Maybe I was wrong, and that's why I went and grabbed one of these things, because I wanted to see for myself what the differences are. Now, of course, the key layout does feel a little bit less modern than the modern Amatis, and yes, it does feel a bit different. In fact, it feels significantly different, but not too bad actually. How I like to put it is that imagine you're used to driving quite modern cars, then you pick up a nice old vintage car and you start driving that. It feels a bit strange and clunky at first, but once you get into it and you get driving, it's absolutely fine and you start enjoying the ride. So that's how I would say or describe something like these Amatis compared to the modern ones. Some saxophones I've tried have been very uncomfortable because the pinky layout has been horrible, the right hand pinky's been horrible, and the whole keywork's been a bit weird. But this one is very comfortable actually. In fact, it's a little bit more comfortable than I was expecting. That's quite a good thing. But one thing I noticed when I put this back together, because I did rebuild this, I stripped it down, serviced it, the key heights on these older Amatis seem to be slightly lower. Even when you put a fine sliver of cork right at the back of the keys, it's still quite a low action, but it's not uncomfortable, and yeah, it's not too bad. Now another little difference between these older Amati tenors and say a modern tenor is that the neck angle seems to be a little bit lower than what I'm used to, and that kind of gives it a little darker, more husky, gritty sound. But we're going to get into that in a minute because I'm going to go straight into a demo. So I'll catch you lot after the demo. Speak to you soon. Yet again, another tenor which you lot might overlook. Now, if you're on a limited budget and you get one of these set up nicely, you're going to have quite a gutsy, gritty sounding tenor. Now, yes, I'm a brighter sounding player and it might be hard to hear that grittier, gutsier sound. It was steering me right into the direction of staying within the regular tenor saxophone range. I didn't feel the need to go into altissimo. I just felt like I wanted to play within the lower register because it has that nice, throaty, gutsier sound, but it still came across in my playing, particularly when I stayed within that lower register. This tenor really is quite good. And I was kind of prejudging it when I got it. I thought, here we go, let's see what it's like. And I was a bit skeptical, but after I set it up, after I serviced it, I realised it's actually not as bad as I expected. In fact, it's pretty okay. Now, would I replace my main tenor with this thing? Well, the answer is a clear no. And that's not because that this is a bad horn in any way. Now, if I'd just left school or college and I had to replace the saxophone which was kindly loaned out to me by the school or college, something like this, if you're on a little bit of a budget, would do a great job. If you get it set up well, it's going to be a nice starter tenor or something that you could use as a backup horn. I think this is quite okay. And maybe I prejudged these old Amatis a little bit too much when I did my video about the Amati 61. Yes, it doesn't feel exactly as modern as the 61 Amatis, but it doesn't feel bad at all. And like I say, once you get used to it and you're playing around on the key work, it doesn't take long to get right into the swing of it. Now, I did find myself slightly adjusting my embouchure when I was going up to the top end for the tuning, but once you get into the swing of that, that's also quite acceptable and pretty normal when you come to adjusting from one horn to another. Adjusting your embouchure, the tuning, getting used to the small differences in intonation and tuning between horns is pretty standard. So would I recommend something like this? Well, the answer is a big yes. Like I said, if you're on a budget, or you just want a backup horn, or you want something that's going to go nicely in a pub band, a rock and roll band, or a gig where you know it's going to be a little bit volatile, which a lot of gigs are, you know what I'm talking about if you're a gigging musician. Something like this would do a fantastic job. So yet again, I would easily say that these Amatis are in the same category as like the BNS, that sort of style, you know, the underdog of saxophones. So don't overlook them. If you get one that's set up nicely, something like this, you might take a little bit of time just to get used to it if you've been playing your nice, shiny, brand new Yamaha or Selmer. But once you get used to something like this, I think you'll find that the sound is good, the tone's good, and it's a fun instrument to noodle around on. Anyway, that's just my little input on these unsung heroes, the Amati tenor saxophones. And it's quite similar with the altos because I've had a few of them in my dirty paws. Don't be a saxophone snob. Just try things which, you know, you might end up liking them. Anyway, that said, I hope you like this video. Get that finger, wiggle it around, click on the like button, click on the subscribe, and you will catch this fool in the next video. Goodbye, people. Have a great day.